what we're doing when we're making a glaze is we're taking a glass former, which is silica, and we need to melt that onto a pot. That's the idea. It melts at 3,100 degrees Fahrenheit. That is very high temperature. So if we wanted to just make our glazes with silica alone, we could, but our kilns would have to go to 3,100 degrees, which would be impossible. So what we do is we combine it with a flux, which melts at a lower temperature. Say the most common thing might be soda ash. So that melts about 1650 Fahrenheit. And so when you put those two together, then the glass can be melted at a much lower temperature, say around 2350, which is cone 10. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get that glass former to melt, to adhere to the pot and make a glaze. Now, if we have too much flux in there, it's going to run off the pot because most pots are vertical and gravity and heat will cause it to run off. So in order to stop that, we usually add a refractory, which is kaolin or alumina, and that will stop the flow. So those are the three things we like to talk about in glazes: is glass former, flux, and refractory. You may have heard of Hermann Seeger. He was a German scientist in the 1800s, late 1800s, and he worked at a factory in Germany, the porcelain factory, and they had a lot of losses there, glaze flaws. And so what he wanted to do was go back to the atom, the basic building block of matter, and determine the properties of atoms and try to figure out the structure of a glaze. And so what he came up with is a method that we still use today, which is, flux, a refractory, and glass former. And from that structure, you can get very complex and detailed into it, but we just want to use it as an overview of a way to look at glazes and try to understand a little bit more about them so you can make glazes that fit your aesthetic and what you're trying to do. So you'll recall from our triaxial that we used ash, a feldspar, and a clay. So ash was a flux, that's a high in calcium. The feldspar was nephsite, which is a sodium feldspar, and that's got a glass former and a refractory in it. And then the clay, which has alumina and silica, but also had some iron, so that's a flux. So all the materials we use are a blending of these flux, refractory, and glass former, and that's why you have to understand a little bit about the properties of them and know what's in them. Otherwise, you won't know how to manipulate them. The way I like to think about this in a little less scientific way, in my own mind, is it's like a glaze is like a car. You can make a car go fast or slow by hitting the brake or the gas. The same way with a glaze, but in this case, the glass former is the car, the flux is the gas pedal, and the brake is the refractory. So in order for me to get a glaze to melt, I have to press on the gas, add more flux, press on the gas. That'll make my glass former melt more. If it starts running off the pot, then I need to hit the brake, which is the refractory. So I can go back and forth just with flux and refractory in reference to my glass former and make a glaze melt at any temperature I want.